In this video, I'm going to show you how to make more dynamic map animations and go from this and turn it into something like this. So Google Earth Studio is something that I've been using more and more lately to do some map animations. So in this video, I want to show you really how to get those dynamic smooth camera movements. So I'm creating a new project here. If you're brand new to Google Earth Studio, it's free to use. You just need to sign up online. I have a video already, which I'll link down in the description below. That'll walk you through all the steps on how to get it set up and also the basics on how to use the program. So once you're ready, we're just going to create a new project. These are all the settings that I'm using here on screen. I'm just going to hit start. Now you need to go wherever you want to animate the camera. For me, I'm going down here towards Mount Cook. And I'm going to start bringing my camera in here. So I want to end up somewhere around here. So what I can do on my timeline, I'm just going to start by creating an end keyframe here for all of these properties. I'm just going to bring this up so we can see what we're doing. And then I want to bring the camera back around here, maybe zoom out, bring this back. So the first thing is you're really just trying to get the rough animation of what you want. So what I'm going to do is go back to my beginning here, and I want to sort of bring my camera in over the top of these mountains over here, and then up this valley. Something like that might look quite good. You're just trying to lay out the rough, general perspective of your animation of what you want the camera to be doing. Now, one tip that I have here, when you're animating any of these sort of like fly through camera, FPV style camera movements, you want to try and imagine that you're sitting in the cockpit of that FPV drone. So as you're flying, you want to try and keep the camera's perspective always pointing in the direction that you're flying. So you're not focusing on a point of interest, you're using your field of view as the direction of travel. So this will make more sense as we start going through. But you can see that we're already starting to get a little bit of a twist in the camera here. So what I can do is, as I bring the camera out here, I want to also shift my point of view so that we kind of match that camera's movement. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So you're trying to keep that camera always in the direction of your travel. So if I bring the camera over here, what I want to do is, if I zoom in here, I want to also start to bring that camera around. This is a really important part to getting smooth movements. But at this point, you're really just trying to lay out the camera movement of what the final animation is going to look like. So this is already looking quite good here. And we end up with something like this. Now, something else you can also add in, which I recommend to really exaggerate this, is adding in a roll and also adding in a time of day function. So if I add those down here, what you want to start to do with the roll is start by animating the roll to line up with the camera's direction. So if I'm turning this way, I want the camera rolling to the right, and if I'm banking the camera this way, I want it rolling to the left. So we start to basically animate this so that the camera is sort of like rolling around. Maybe bring this one back a little bit like this, and then bring the camera around, something like that. So it kind of adds a bit more of that FPV drone style, which is really cool. And the other thing that I'm also going to do is create a keyframe here for my time of day. This just makes our scene look a little bit more dramatic and makes the overall look a lot better. You kind of bring that camera up over the top. So kind of animating the time of day. You could even go all the way into night if you wanted to, and kind of have the stars would look kind of cool. But it's really just about trying to get a look that you're happy with and get away from that typical sort of top-down lighting scenario. Now, once I've got all those, what you'd normally do is just go in here and make them all auto ease. That's going to ease them all out. But you'll notice it looks okay, but it's kind of like here it's really slow and the timing's not great. So the next part is to really kind of get the timing right. So I'm going to bring all of these keyframes in here because this needs to be a lot faster. And I'm trying to look at the overall timing. Probably bring these ones out. It's a little bit too fast. Maybe bring these out a little bit as well. Just kind of keep playing through it until you kind of get the right timing. So timing is a massive part of getting your animations to look smooth. So you want to try and keep the camera going at a very consistent sort of rate all the way through. And you'll find that this is one tip which is massively going to help increase the smoothness of your overall animation. So we kind of got something that looks like this. Now you can always go through and fine tune this, but I'm just kind of getting it into a position that kind of looks right. So the next part is, now we want to actually start clicking on each of these, and you'll notice it comes up with this graph editor. Now the graph editor, what you need to do is, or by default, it works inside of the value graph, which means that if I go to say this longitude and adjust this, it's actually moving the position of that camera because you're changing the value or the property to be a different point. So what we want is we want to go in here to the speed graph because this is the change over time. So there's a big difference here because what we can do is start to smooth out these by dragging them up and down to try and get these graphs to smooth out. Now you'll notice here, see how it kind of, the graph comes down here and then starts moving in a different direction. So the more dramatic those movements are on that graph, basically the more dramatic that movement's going to be. So if we drag this up and try to smooth that out, you'll notice that the overall effect is a lot better. Now you'll need to do this for each of the properties. Now what you'll notice is that it's actually changing the value, but it's only perceived to be changing the value. It's not actually changing the position. What it's doing is it's changing the timing of between those two keyframes, if that makes sense. So when I mess around with these, it is going to adjust that camera's position based on the timing that I'm trying to create between those 2 points. So I'm going to go through here and kind of smooth out all of these points, dragging them up and down here. Now, not all of them you're going to basically just do this for. So you'll notice that as you go through that you might get better results if you leave some of them as they are. So this is where you kind of want to go through, click on one, make an adjustment, just play through it to see what's actually happening. Now, what you're going to find is by doing that say the camera doesn't quite get or end up in the right position. So it still looks a little bit odd. Now here we can see the camera's kind of flying, sideways. So what we want to do is we want to change our pan on this particular keyframe to pan around more, so that the camera is now sort of moving around in that direction. Now, as we get down here, what I'm going to do is add another point in, and that's going to keep our camera pointed in that direction. Now, see what I mean about this graph? Even though the points are a little bit more drastic, it doesn't affect our overall animation. So this is just something you want to be aware of. You don't want to just try and smooth out everything. Now, graph editing does take quite a long time to kind of get proficient at and really kind of learn, what changes to make. If this is something that you want to learn more about, I go into a lot of detail in my animation master course, and there'll be a link down in the description below. And in that, I go through how to create all different types of animations, from map animations right through to how to actually use After Effects, right through to actually creating some really cool 2D animations all inside of After Effects. But I also go through how to use the graph editor, and for all different types of animations, how you can manipulate the graph editor to really get smooth results. So if this is something that you want to learn a lot more about, then definitely check out my animation master course. There's over 40 videos in that course and over 50 animations that you make throughout. And as I mentioned, even if you're a complete beginner, I walk you through the absolute basics of After Effects, right through to creating some really awesome animations and effects. Another little tip that you can also do is you can start to off-center or offset some of these properties. They don't all have to line up. In most cases, that's probably going to be better. But if you have a point where it's really kind of obvious that the camera movement, you can't quite get it right, try off-centering one of these properties. Instead of having all of those changes at once, would kind of spread them over a period of time, which kind of, it can help ease out that entire animation. Now, something else that you can also do here is you can just try deleting a property. So if you're really struggling to kind of get the position right, or something's not kind of working, just try deleting an entire keyframe and see what it does to your animation. So here it's now flying through my mountain. What I can do is go to the altitude property, bring this up. Probably need to bring it up even more here. And here I'll need to bring this up as well. Maybe delete that property. So you can see we've kind of, you can kind of get around different things like that. Now at the end here, where you're going from a very low to a high position, that animation is quite drastic. So it doesn't matter how much you smooth that out, sometimes it's just not going to work. You need to be aware of that. So the way that you would go about fixing that is you go to the part before and you would try to bring those 2 points closer together. So the altitude is a big thing here. So what I can do is bring that altitude up for this point, and then you'll notice that it's sort of a lot smoother now transitioning between that altitude. It doesn't have to, the camera doesn't have to move as much, so it's going to be a lot smoother overall. Now, once you've got that, all you need to do is then hit render. You can adjust the position of your watermark. You want to leave this to be image sequence, or you can render it out as an MP4. You can choose where you're going to save it. You can choose how you're going to export it. And here I just want to make sure this is set as After Effects, JSX, Global, Clean, and I'm using a high quality. You can also set your dimensions and then just hit start. So the next part is I want to now bring this animation into After Effects. So I come up here to File, down to Scripts, Run Script File. I select that .jsx from where you rendered out that animation. That automatically then creates a new composition with that animation already in my timeline. Now from here, you can simply right click, create a new adjustment layer. And then to this, I can add a Lumetri color. I can add a LUT over the top if I want to add a color grade. Then I can also add to this, I can add a pixel motion blur. And if you add this onto the top, this is how you're going to add motion blur to your final video. And then when I render this out, you can see we have our finished video with all of our effects applied. So hopefully you've picked up a few tips and tricks in this video. This is how I create different dynamic map animations. And Google Earth Studio is a great free way of creating these really cool map animations. So if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You can check out more videos just like this one over here on the side of the screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.